What's going on, guys? Christian Hanna Horror here today, and we're talking about 1980s Maniac. I watched this movie the other day, and I was absolutely stunned by how grotesque and realistic this movie was. I don't think I've seen a movie quite like this in a long time. The edition that I have here is the Blue Underground 4K restoration release that came out last year, and it is absolutely stunning. The picture quality is as good as it's gonna get. You know, 4K is probably like the best pixelation I think the eye can really render on its own. I really don't know how much better, video quality is going to be able to get after this, but whatever, that's not the point of this video. So Maniac is starred by a guy named Joe Spinell. You may remember him from Godfather, or maybe Rocky's boss in the first couple Rocky movies. He was the mafia guy, says, "Break his thumbs, Rock, break his thumbs for me." So Joe Spinell plays a serial killer, and what's really interesting about this movie is it's so realistic. The approach of the character and the approach of how a serial killer lives their life, it's extremely uneasy. This is an hour and a half of pure uneasy tension, like anything I've ever seen. What really makes this movie just creepy and effective is it's not cinematic whatsoever. Sure, there's music in it, there's a score in this movie, but this movie is not cinematic scary. It's almost like a voyeuristic kind of movie where you're watching something maybe you shouldn't be watching. And that's the best thing about a horror movie, is when you feel like you shouldn't be watching something. So basically, Joe Spinell's character in this movie, he is a lonely guy who cannot help but to kill, and I think it stems from childhood trauma. They kind of have moments where you hear his voice inside of his head bringing up the past with his mother and uneasy things like that, and he cannot help but just kill, and it's almost like a BTK type killing. Like, the first kill in this movie is so hard to watch because it's drawn out and it's long, of him choking a girl out with his bare hands. It doesn't meet you halfway. It's really uneasy, it's prolonged, it's realistic. The poor girl is gasping for air, and what's interesting about this is as soon as he's done with the killing, he feels bad. It's almost like that X Factor turns on when he's killing, and as soon as it's done, it's like, who just did that? That's not me. But the tension in this movie builds up even more. One notable thing about this movie is we do have Tom Savini on the special effects makeup team. So there you go. You know that the blood and gore is going to be at its absolute best. I don't think anyone would argue that Tom Savini is one of the best when it comes to 1980 special effects. What I did also like about this movie is, despite the fact that the first 15-20 minutes are pure high uneasiness, it does turn into a very good suspense horror movie. There's a notable scene with the girl in a subway station. This girl knows that there's a serial killer out on the loose. It's out in the papers, it's out on the town, and then she sees this figure walking down the stairs late at night in the subway when she's there by herself. That entire sequence, I was edge of my seat, like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? And then when you think the maniac, for lack of a better word, is going to pop up, he doesn't. I gotta give him credit for that. You think, here he comes, but then he doesn't, and then he comes when you least expect it. For a movie to be this old and me thinking it was going to be certain cliches and it wasn't, credit to that. I mean, this movie got me in a couple spots. It really did. Probably one of the weirdest elements about this movie is what the maniac does with his victims. He likes to have some sort of trophy. As we've known from studying real serial killers like BTK, like Jeffrey Dahmer, like Ted Bundy, if you will, they like to have trophies of their victims, and this one skins his victims' heads and puts the hair piece, or the scalp piece, on a mannequin. There's clips of him where he buys mannequins and he's undressing them and talking to them in his apartment. Like I said, just really creepy stuff. But one of the most surreal and breathtaking scenes is the scene with Tom Savini and the girl in the old car when they're trying to get it on. A lot of times in horror movies, when guns come out, things don't get scary, things don't seem tense. This movie was able to have a shotgun scene in it with Tom Savini that was so scary and horrifying in its approach, it stole the entire movie. Tom Savini himself gets killed in this movie, which is another interesting thing about this. But this sequence with the maniac and Tom Savini where his head gets blown off is probably one of the most horrifying and surreal scenes in a horror movie I think I've ever seen. I really do. Joe Spinell's performance in this was just absolutely insane. You know, you see him in a movie like Rocky. He's got this personable approach to him. Sure, he's a mafia guy, but you kind of like him in that movie. But this movie, it's almost too good. I mean, that's the only way I can really put Joe Spinell's performance, is it's almost too good. He plays a just mentally deranged human being so well. It really is an honest approach at what a serial killer would be like in real life. Another thing to note is that this movie predates Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which we also know was a very highly ranked serial killer movie in its approach of realism. I've seen both, and I've got to say, this movie has a little bit more of an edge when it comes to just pure uneasy tension. Even though this is a low-budget 80s slasher movie, the performance from Joe, his portrayal is so good, like I said, it's almost like a voyeuristic movie. You feel like you shouldn't be watching this. The greatest thing about this, with it being a slasher film, ironically, is not just the blood and guts. While it's there, and it's hard to watch, and it's gory, the tension and uneasiness and the story about this is what takes the cake. It has a twist ending, but I'm not going to spoil that for you guys either. Let's talk about the Blu-ray itself. Like I said, this is the Blue Underground 4K restoration. I don't own anything else by Blue Underground. I'm not sure what other movies Blue Underground has put out, but if this is the start of things to come with restorations like this, I'm ready to get some more movies from Blue Underground. As far as special features in this thing, you're going to get audio commentaries with the producer and writer William Lustig. You'll also get an audio commentary track with Tom Savini, theatrical trailers, TV spots, plus much more. There's great little documentaries about this movie. As I said in my last Cult Classic episode, if you re-release a horror movie like this and give us a 4K restoration, what have you, please do what you can to give us a documentary about the filmmaking. That's my favorite thing about these new editions. You get an interview with star Carolyn Munro in this. So there we have it, guys. On another episode of Cult Classic, here we are talking about Maniac. This movie, just, wow. I mean, it really is just a gut-wrenching movie. I have seen the remake. I do like the remake, but it does not top the uneasiness and just a voyeuristic feel of the original. When it comes to slasher movies, I've got to give Maniac like 6 out of 5 stars. I just think it's that good. It's different from any other horror movie you're going to see. Like I said, the realism in this is almost on the same level of something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if that gives you guys any kind of idea. If you're interested in picking up this 4K restoration of Maniac, I'll be sure to leave you an Amazon affiliate link from me down in the description below. Please drop a comment below. Let me know if you like these reviews. Let me know what you think about Maniac, and be sure to hit that bell so you'll be notified every time I upload. Thanks, this is Christian Hannah Horror, and we'll see you guys next time.